Blackhawks fans, welcome into the Four Feathers podcast. It's Jonnie and Tony here alongside Tony Marchese, and we are discussing Hossa Night on this episode, season 4, episode 8. Thank you all for joining us so much. Crack 'em, as my colleague Tony just did. I'll join you in that. Cheers to Marian Hossa, Tony.
Cheers, Johnny. It's a great show today that we have in store for everybody, and I think we're not going to be able to live up to everything that happened on Sunday night, but we'll try and recount it as best as we can. Johnny, cheers, hosted forever. Let's get into this. How you doing tonight?
Tony, I'm doing well. I still haven't found the perfect place to display this, but my God, this is what we're celebrating tonight. This is a Marian Hossa replica banner for our audio-only listeners tuning in. But yeah, Tony, it was an absolute movie on Sunday night. That is the first initial thought that I have that comes to mind when I'm talking about this whole celebration. I don't know about you.
It was absolutely fantastic. I think movie is a great way to put it. I think overall the Hawks did an excellent job of honoring the legend of Marian Hossa. And we'll get into some of the sights, sounds, and reactions to everything. But overall, just what a great display that was put on for him. And I think it served as some great closure to the era of Marian Hossa with the Blackhawks, and the banner that hangs now in the rafters of the UC for everybody to see is on full display. 81, greatest free agent signing in Chicago sports history. I'll just say it right there. Deserved every little bit of it, Johnny. Let's get into some of the details.
Yeah, as we kick off that discussion, Tony, I want to build on something that you just said there, and you used a word there, closure, and you've said that to me multiple times, but I want you to explain to the listeners. I know the whole gist of it, but explain that it brought some closure to the whole Marian Hossa situation, because obviously his career did not end the way in which many thought that it would. So go ahead, elaborate on that for us.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that any Blackhawks fans had an opportunity to really say goodbye to Marian Hossa. I mean, obviously, Johnny, the skin condition that ended his career a little bit early. He wasn't really available to the media, obviously, when he was going through most of that. They didn't really do anything to sort of honor him and his career. You normally see a player who leaves or retires. And obviously this was different because they couldn't really do anything after they traded his contract out. So there was sort of this open-endedness, right? When are they going to honor Marian Hossa and what he meant to the city of Chicago? There was years where it was just kind of dead air in between, the Blackhawks and, what exactly was going to happen here. And I think being there last year with you when he signed the one-day contract, and then the culmination of that being the jersey retirement ceremony, which was just this past Sunday, I think that provided sort of that closure to, hey, here's this guy who you go into an offseason. Everybody expected him to be back. And, I don't know where you were when you got the news, but it was sort of chilling. Like, you knew things were not going to be as great for the Chicago Blackhawks sort of the moment that those reports came out. And then he just wasn't around the team the next year. And so that closure is sort of the final skate that they offered to some of those guys just a few years ago as sort of a promotional thing, or one last shift, I believe it was called. But Hossa never really got that. And I thought maybe they'd do something like that for him, or, depending on whether or not they would retire his jersey. I didn't really expect sort of the movie-esque atmosphere that was provided there. I mean, they did a brilliant job. And I think that closure is sort of what I was seeking as a Blackhawks fan, Marian Hossa being my favorite player to ever lace him up. I needed something like that. And I think just where I sit here now, it was awesome to be a part of that celebration.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I just wanted you to explain that because you and I have talked about this on the phone after a couple two tree beers many a times, Tony. But I think that's important, and it definitely was the perfect way to kind of close the book on that, and the way that you just described it there. But man, when we're thinking about the day of it, Tony, it was basically a holiday. It was a Blackhawks holiday of sorts, and it I think our guy Comiskey put it best. The energy was back in the UC, and I know you were
Mhm.
honoring a legend there, but man, how far things have fallen. Obviously, a number of factors playing into that in terms of the rebuild, and obviously all of the situation that went on early on during last season. But it was good to see some of that energy back there, and man, the life that was in the building when we were all gathered in the atrium and Marian Hossa plus former teammates were all on that kind of catwalk right
Mhm.
above the atrium. And from that moment when he leaned over and just gave a wave to the crowd, you just heard a roar. And it was something that kind of sent chills down my spine. I don't know about you.
Absolutely. I mean, that place was packed shoulder to shoulder. Kind of right when you walk through security, about 15, 20 minutes after the gates opened into the atrium, Johnny, that place was filled up. And they opened the United Center itself about an hour after that. So everybody was packed in, and there's giant displays for Marian Hossa and his entire career. Some things were on them were, just maybe a bit off, not edited properly, but um, there was giant displays out there for him. A giant banner hanging from the rafters of the atrium that was celebrating Marian Hossa. Obviously, the atrium is always decorated appropriately for whatever event that they're holding, but they went above and beyond. I would love personally to get the giant banner that I was just talking about. I would probably just hang it off of my deck and my neighbor's deck and my other neighbor's deck for everybody to see because it was that large. But I mean, you get in there and sort of the same way for the 1 day contract signing, Johnny, that when you and I were there for that event, that place was packed for this one individual. And just kind of taking that in and realizing, the only other times I've seen this for the Blackhawks are the Stanley Cup parades, right? That's kind of what it felt like being in there, seeing just seas of red and feeling that atmosphere. And you're right, when he leaned over and waved to the crowd on both sides, I mean, the place just erupted. And yeah, just an electric place to be.
Yeah, we had talked about it a little bit on the show last week, and right, what did I say that it was kind of going to be in terms of just a setup of the day, right? With the timing of everything, it was going to be a rally of sorts, the likes of which you had never really experienced in the United Center. Obviously, the games themselves, when you're talking about those Stanley Cup runs, each one of those obviously had an atmosphere to it, and there's nothing that can top that. However, this is a planned celebration. You already knew all the accolades that were racked up by this, outstanding Hall of Fame hockey player. And, like they had said, I really like the way that they themed it, kind of that he was the missing piece to their puzzle, Tony. So as we're kind of getting into the depth of what everybody kind of said from Eddie O to his teammates on that pregame panel to, anybody you did, Danny Wirtz, who got up there and talked. It was really a great way to honor him. And like I said, everyone was totally bought in to everything that was going on there, and rightfully so, because can't think of another guy more deserving of it.
I can't either, Johnny. And you bring up a couple other things. If we want to move towards the ceremony here, the first thing that kind of just gets everybody by surprise is walking out to the podium is Eddie Olczyk, and I did not expect that. I didn't expect it one bit. I thought you might see potentially maybe Pat Foley. I thought you might see Jonathan Taves or a former teammate come out there and address everybody. Maybe Patrick Sharp as a TV guy right now. I did not expect Eddie Olczyk to come out and be the master of ceremony, so to speak.
I think the happiest guy in the building was our fellow Four Feathers panelist, Patrick Comiskey, because he has written many a time at ontapsportsnet.com about how Eddie O is the greatest MC, for any of such ceremonies in Chicago sports. And I think it was a nice touch that, Marian Hossa was the one that wanted him to come back and be the one to lead that charge on that front. And I think that, probably definitely has something to do with how well of a job he did for all of those cup rallies that he emceed back in the day, and the other ceremonies additionally too. When you're talking about 1,000th game, when you're talking about milestone achievements, 1,000 points, stuff like that, Eddie O did it all, and it was excellent to have him back in the building and hear him kind of narrate that for Marian Hossa on Sunday.
Yeah, and you know what? Now looking back on it, Johnny, I just don't feel that there was anybody else that could have done that. And I'm very happy that, for whatever differences or whatever, bad air there was between the Blackhawks and Eddie, not saying that there was any, but it felt that way when he left from the outside looking in, that Eddie Olczyk was the one there giving that ceremony, because it gave this entire thing sort of that rally feel, that Stanley Cup, that accolade celebration feel that Blackhawks fans of that generation, can put Eddie O's voice to another one of those moments, a big moment in Blackhawks history. Marian Hossa's jersey going to the rafters.
Yeah, right. Tony, so as we're, kind of walking through the day here, we all got there, and hey, we had a full squad out. The Four Feathers pod was repping in full, plus friends, out to go and celebrate Marian Hossa. It was excellent, Tony. This was something that I don't think we've had that large of a group in terms of everybody there, plus additional on tap guys, plus other friends of the show out there. It was a party atmosphere on a Sunday fun day indeed.
It was a Sunday fun day, and Johnny, yeah, I think that that's probably the largest outing that we've had as a group, at a Blackhawks event, from Four Feathers and the On Tap crew out there. But it was good. I mean, it was sort of reminiscent of what we see take place more at White Sox games, with everybody there hanging out, hanging around, and having a good time. But yeah, we were out there in full force, and the drinks were flowing, except for when they weren't. I think your bartender guy kind of disappeared there for a little bit
Yeah,
before the game
yeah,
started.
we can get into that a little bit later, but yeah, you can definitely tell. I think the United Center operations was a little bit overwhelmed
I
with
might have something to say about that.
the
Might have
number of
something to
people. Yeah,
say about that.
we'll get into that. But obviously, we went and we attended that panel, and we were a little bit further back, but I could still hear Sharpie and Keith and Siebes and Hammer all talk about him. It was great to hear them recount some memories. Obviously, all of the big ones, the Nashville goal. And just talking about him as a player and what he meant. And especially it was cool hearing it from, you got a trio of defensemen up there, three of the best defensemen in Blackhawks history. And they're talking about how much Marian Hossa helped him. Help them, in the defensive game. So that was all cool stuff to hear. But then as we go in and get into the ceremony, I think it was a really nice job by the Blackhawks with the coordinated light show with those little wristbands that they had on every seat. So that did well. It had good music selection too. A couple of EDM bangers that I'm always a fan of there. But it just kind of set the stage for an epic sort of setup in that montage video. Man, the Blackhawks are one of the best in business at doing that. You can go and rag on them for a number of other things, but man, they've
had
always
plenty of
done that
practice
well.
doing that.
Ever since the 2010 Cup, they have just been on top of their game with all that stuff.
They absolutely have. And like I said, they've had tons of practice doing it, tons of accolades racked up by all of these guys who are part of that core. So yeah, I mean, when you're making videos on the regular for different milestones hit by Patrick Kane, Jonathan Taves, Brent Seabrook, Duncan Keith, Marian Hossa, Stanley Cups victories, all that stuff, you got to have a great video production team, and the Blackhawks do. Johnny, you're absolutely correct. I'm gonna probably watch that package because I'm a sucker for Marian Hossa highlight videos and highlight reels and all that type of stuff. So yeah, I'm probably gonna watch that like about 1,000 more times within the next 365 days. But yeah, I mean that the atmosphere was absolutely electric. From the second you walk in, the lights go out, and that light show you talked about, really nice touch. Again, didn't expect that. So another unexpected thing that I thought led to the atmosphere being exactly the way it was.
Yeah, right. And then to the man of the hour himself, as Eddie O dubbed him during that. Obviously, like I said, it was great to see Eddie O out there. But Marian Hossa, this guy has always been a class act. I think we've all known that ever since he came to Chicago, ever since his introductory presser, right? After signing with the Blackhawks as a free agent. And through all of it, right? Through all of the success that team had, through even last spring when he came back to sign that. It's never been about him. He's always been a team guy. He's always been right. Think about his play on the ice, right? A two-way forward. He's not just about the flashy goals and you can do plenty of that, right? But it's never been all about him. And it is just when the day was supposed to be all about him, he still carried himself in a manner which was very team-like. And it was just great to see him back up there in person because I knew he's resides over in Europe, but it's nice to see that the Blackhawks want to get him involved further, and he has the willingness to want to do so there. But Tony, from his talk, anything that stood out from what he addressed the crowd with?
No, I mean, I think he was once again super humble. And you've heard that from Marian Hossa his entire career. I mean, this guy, he has never made it about him. He spent a large portion of his speech just thanking other people, like you kind of mentioned here, down to members of the training staff, the front office, his agent, family, everybody around him. And he brought his family out there as well. Mom, dad were there, wife, kids. And all of his former teammates who showed up for him. I know only a couple of them were out there on the ice, but there was a suite full of the rest of guys who had played with Hossa throughout those cup runs. And just to see everybody kind of get back together there was awesome, and see the support that he had from his former teammates. And he's just made it really about them and about the people who helped him along the way get to where he needed to be. The only other thing that I can really think of from his speech that really stuck out was the fact that he, just like all of us, laughed at the city of Detroit. And that was just such a great moment because Detroit sucks, and Marian knows it, and we know it. And it was just kind of a shared moment between everybody in the United Center and Marian Hossa to all agree that Detroit sucks. And I think that was probably the pinnacle of what you want to hear from a guy whose jersey number is going up in the rafters. Is that he says it never gets old saying Detroit sucks.
The moment that you're talking about there, obviously, I thought it was kind of funny in just his own, kind of personal reserve brand of humor. But he said, I'd gone to the Cup 2 other times, and that's when he had mentioned, Detroit and Pittsburgh, obviously the teams that he had previously been on before coming to the Blackhawks, and obviously went to the Cup final and lost both those. He said, I was beginning to think it was me. That gave me a good chuckle because he's, it obviously wasn't. He was doing everything in his power to help those teams get there, and obviously help the Blackhawks get over the hump. Then
he drew laughter from the entire crowd with that.
Right. Yeah. He engaged the crowd with that. And then I love that, Blackhawks fans responded in tone with the Detroit sucks chant there. I was loud and proud with that one there, Tony. I'm sure you were as well.
I think we all were. And that's just what made this whole entire thing feel special, because you could also get a player that goes out there and makes it all about themselves. The way that he handled it, the way that he engaged the crowd throughout his speech, and the way that he thanked everybody it was almost the same way that he took a microphone out there and spoke to an entire full stadium of Blackhawks fans, the same way he carried out his duties on the ice. Johnny, he was always there to, do something productive with everything that he said, whether that be engaging the crowd on one end or thanking the people that got him there. Very, very two-way speech, very Marian Hossa-esque.
Yeah, right. Yeah, very allegorical. I love it. It was just, like I said, very nice ceremony. The Blackhawks put on excellent production value. Very, impactful speech that Marian Hossa gave. Excellent setup by Eddie O. It was cool to see all of the former teammates there. Tony, I also like how they did it where they had it earlier. I know some people may, depending on your schedule of the day, I guess, whether you preferred that or not. I like the setup of it because it didn't feel rushed, and it again didn't delay the game extreme too much. I know it
I'm
was
sure there
delayed
were
a little
some
bit,
people,
but
yeah, they might have missed it if they were,
but
crying about Justin Fields
yeah,
after the
right.
Bears game.
But the part of it though is that Kane and Taves, two of the guys that shared all of that glory with him so much, along with the others, that I mentioned that were on the panel there, they all got to be out there and sit on the ice there and be with them during that ceremony. So I think that was really important to do so. So I like the way that they went about it, and then obviously, so some waterworks when the banner started to come up out of the chute there, and his whole family standing there in a line in front of that banner, raising up to the rafters over at that opposite end of the UC from where you and I were at. Let's just ask a question: did you cry when Marian Hossa's number went to the rafters?
Yeah, but I think I was crying like well before
Right.
that, Johnny. Probably like when the speech started, when you saw the videos come on, when you walk out there and the lights go off. I mean,
Yeah.
I was teary eyed from kind of the start of this thing, and even the dude next to me who was just like, there. I think his friends were sitting behind him or whatever. He was starting to tear up and cry about shit, and I'm like, holy shit, the emotions are coming over me. And I'm sitting there with my wife, and she's kind of teary eyed too. And
Yeah.
you kind of look around, and it just felt kind of surreal. It felt kind of surreal. I'll ask you. I mean, at what point? Because for me, it was the entire thing was very emotional. I mean, this is a guy that won you
I
3 cups.
I would say it was chills for most of the first part of it, Tony, but then when they ran that video package and they
Mhm.
used Avicii's remix of "A Sky Full of Stars" during all of his greatest moments and raising the cup, during that kind of, 5-minute highlight package during the middle of it, and they obviously had all the quotes. They had all the, Pat Foley was interviewed on that, and a number of different teammates, former players were interviewed on that. But when they went to that, and you got all the great hosts of moments, the goals, him raising the cup with some Avicii underneath it, that's when the waterworks started coming up in section 320 for me.
I figured that right there was a hot point for you. Um, but I mean the whole thing was just, I think, for everybody. It hit you with some sort of emotion. It made you feel something as a Blackhawks fan. And that's what you want from this. That's exactly what you want from this, is to have those heightened emotions. Um, and the Blackhawks delivered once again in that department. I think the banner raising itself at that point, I thought it was going to go up with the rest of the other numbers, so I wasn't really prepared. I saw the box that was across
Right.
the same way that they raised sort of the cup banners and everything. I didn't expect it, and this is what hit me. I didn't expect it to go right underneath the 2010, 2013, and 2015 cup banners.
Yeah.
And when it went up there, I started to think to myself, are they going to surround that banner with the other members of the 3-time cup winners? And how cool is it that he is the first one and that we're here witnessing that? And I kind of had an interesting vantage point of it from where I was in 327, because it was directly across from me. The
Yep.
video board was sort of right in the way, but that thing was staring me right in the face the entire time. And when you realize that if you're sitting 300 level right there from the opposite end, you're going to have a clear view, if they do this, of all of those jerseys together with those cup banners. It'll be interesting to see if they move him over with the other guys
Yeah.
or if it
Right.
remains there. But that to me kind of hit hard that they put his banner right there with those cup banners. That's the first place that it went. There's no word about where it's going to go, and I haven't seen this
Yeah.
anywhere. But I thought the placement was interesting, and that one kind of hit me.
Yeah, right. Definitely a good observation by you there, and I'll be interested to see. So next time I'm back, I believe it might be Not this next little homestand, but the one after that. I should be hashtag back at the UC. So I'll report back and see if there has been any movement on it. But if not, and if that is the place that they start to go, we could have, I'm sure at some point here, we're going to have a whole nother show discussing which other numbers should go up there. But it would be interesting to see. And for the presentation of it, though, at least on that night, I think that was the perfect spot for it, because also then you go and look at where his suite was located during that game. It was kind of below that goal, and he basically, him and his family and everybody, all the other former Hawks that were in that suite, had the perfect view of it right there. And then obviously they were looking down the ice as well. So I think that was an interesting touch to it, but we shall see where it resides in the future. But we'll report back on that with some photo evidence on the @4feathers_pod Twitter.
What was interesting to me too, Johnny, is it seemed a little bit larger than the other banners that were hanging over with the other numbers.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna need some further analysis on that.
It's been a while since they have retired one, and updating just the quality of things, right? Because some of those older banners look a little bit dated in terms of what the logo was for the era or whatever it may be, the stitching on it, and sure, they have the ability to go and touch those up if they need to. But when you think about it, it's been a while since a number has been raised to the rafters at the UC. So yeah, it definitely did look a little bit larger.
It's been a while.
Yeah, been a while.
There you go.
Yeah. So we shall see. It was interesting, but man, overall, just a great day. And I know they lost the game, but they at least gave it a fighting chance there later in that one. Dude, I think we were kind of the inevitable was going to come. Malkin playing in his 1000th game that night. And, for the night, he's the opponent, but man, hat tip to another guy that he will get his number raised to the rafters out in Pittsburgh, right? It was kind of inevitable that he was going to score something like that. And then obviously Crosby puts together a huge game, multiple assists, has that
Crosby's
goal late.
First goal.
Yeah, in Chicago.
UC.
Yep.
Come on. What do you just piss on the
Tony, what I think could have helped their problems? Blackhawks problems? Well, Seth Jones. We'll get to him in a second. But on the second line, early in the game at least, I know he scored a goal late, that kind of weird bank behind the goal.
Marian Hossa?
Yeah, they should they should have subbed out Philip Kurashev on that wing on the second line with Jonathan Taves and put Marian Hossa there.
Yeah, why not?
That was my take, at least. I thought I was pretty clever for saying
sign him to a one-day contract. I mean, technically, like realistically speaking, you could do that, right? I mean,
some technicalities there, but yeah,
I'm sure some lawyer can get the paperwork through.
Emergent backup goalies have to be a thing somehow, right?
If you could get Scott Foster into an NHL game, they could have gotten Marian Hossa onto the ice. No excuses. What is Kyle Davidson even doing?
Right. Did Luke Richardson not take any of that in? Come on. You saw those highlights there, and you didn't think you could use a little extra push up front?
Well, didn't we just have Marian Hossa playing in the game, the Hall of Fame game, like a year ago?
There's no footage of it like anywhere.
There's like one highlight of him just absolutely just destroying a goalie. He still looks like he's got every little bit of it. He's probably still better than most NHL players.
Right. Shit, Nicholas Chalmerston was going back to play in the SHL, right? In 2 days, he's going to make his debut over there to suit up for his team that he started out with before he was on the Hawks. So it's like, obviously he's still got some game with them. So
if you took members of the ex Blackhawks who have retired and have won a cup with the team, and you put a team together and you let the current team still have Jonathan Taves and Patrick Kane, who's winning? I mean, you got Hossa out there, probably Patrick Sharp, Corey Crawford's your goalie. Like,
usually when we talk about these things, Tony, it's like kind of just like for the rah-rah of it, right? But when you're talking about the state of the Blackhawks and the rebuilding situation that they're in, you might actually have a point there, and that the alumni would win.
Yeah, I mean, Hjalmarsson obviously on the blue line. I mean, even if you can't find Corey Crawford,
Keith Keith is already penciled in for 40 minutes that night. So.
Yeah, I mean, so this is over already. I would love to see the FanDuel lines on like former Hawks.
Yeah, the alumni are favored, like
Yeah,
minus
the
150.
alumni are favored. Yeah, just ridiculously. That's the thing. That's what's sad about some of this still as a Blackhawks fan is you can look at these guys and like
Right.
see what they're still doing and know, hey, they might actually have a fighting chance, if not be the favorite in a game right now. I mean, Max Domi probably pots one at some point and gets into a fight with Adam Burish, but you never know. You never know how that all shakes out.
Yeah, all right. Dave Bennett said, put all those ex-players on the ice. They would smoke what's playing out there right now. So, yeah, kind of what we were driving at there. All right, let's talk a few other roundup things from Hossa night here and close the book on this, Tony, because it was an excellent day. Obviously, we've got plenty of content. Going back and look at Four Feathers Pod on Twitter and Instagram for all of our content from that day there. But I see you're wearing a new sweatshirt there. You're a big hoodie guy, and it looks like you got a stylish new one there. Go ahead and show that off because I know that was an acquisition there.
This was an acquisition at the Hossa night 81 with isn't that's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. It comes with the little Blackhawks patch on the side. I don't think this thing's left my body since I walked out of the United Center on Sunday night.
Right.
Obviously I've taken it off once or twice, but it's super comfortable. It's got Marian Hossa on it, and it's my new favorite hoodie. You'll see me in this all the time. I mean,
yeah, I think the designs that, once again, we talk about the production that they always do. The surrounding merchandise and promotion that they do for it is always nice as well. I remember when Patrick Kane played in his 1000th game, I've got that nice one Kane shirt. I thought this was a cool one as well because it was like it was 81 on the right chest, right?
The black shirt.
But then it turned into like the one was the also first line of the H that turned into 81. So Hossa 81 technically at the front, but then it said Hossa, and it was all integrated, really cool. Just like that Patrick, one Kane was on that shirt that I have. So that might be one that I picked up. I did not go and get any merch. I was kind of dialed into all the ceremonies and everything that was going on during that. But I do believe on the Blackhawks store online that they still are selling through some of that merch. That was cool stuff. But overall, let's wrap it up with coolest moment, cool observation that you had from the night before we talk a little bit of short Blackhawks news here relating to the current team before we get out of here.
I mean, I think the coolest thing that happened that entire night was that the Stanley fucking Cup came into the building. Yeah. There's only so many times in your life where you're in the same building with the Stanley Cup. And obviously, as Blackhawks fans over the past, decade plus here, we've been sort of accustomed to seeing the Stanley Cup in and around Chicago and with Chicago Blackhawks players. Those days have sort of subsided over the past 7 years, and it felt like we haven't seen the Cup in way too long. I did not expect the Stanley Cup to be in the United Center. I didn't expect it to be with Marian Hossa and his former teammates on the ice. And to just be there right there when Eddie Olczyk said that's some rare air. That was rare air. And I think that not only added to the ceremonies, but then throughout the game, the cup eventually made it to the suite with the former players and Hossa and everybody in it. And to be kind of like right above him and take a picture of Marian Hossa hoisting the cup in front of a fucking close to sold out crowd on a Sunday night in November in the year 2022. Man, that is one of the coolest moments ever. I think that was just the pinnacle of the night right there. Just brings back so many memories that I don't want to forget, and I don't want to forget that night either, Johnny.
Yeah, like I said, I think the speech was really well done, and the kind of thanking of everybody that Hossa did, from the training staff, support staff on the Blackhawks, to former teammates, to his family. His daughter's absolutely adorable during that whole thing. So it was all really touching during that. But the moment that thing reached the rafters, that's when it was solidified, because we make a whole big deal out of these sort of ceremonies themselves. And yes, don't get me wrong, they're great, and we'll be able to go and remember this, and you can have this podcast and go back and listen to it and talk about the memories and stuff like that. But what's going to stay there? What are people going to see for years and years and years? For as long as the Blackhawks continue to exist, to be an NHL franchise, that number up in the rafters there. Shit, even when you're at a Bulls game, when you're at a concert at the United Center, you can go and look up. You can go and look up. You can go and see it. So that was definitely the moment it all became very real. So that was definitely, I would say, my favorite moment of it. Other than that, I think before also too is cool. When the energy was still bubbling, right, still building. Early on, was when he waved over that kind of catwalk within the atrium, because everybody was just so amped up to see him, and then former teammates too. We were obviously excited for Hossa. That's what everyone was there for, but you had the other guys. You had Hammer, you had Sharpie, you had Keith, you had Siebes, all up there, and everybody just gave him a nice warm reception back. It felt good. It felt like a Blackhawks family event there, Tony. So those are kind of my favorite moments of the night. So excellent night. Hossa night was a success. This is season 4, episode 8 of the Four Feathers podcast. We appreciate everybody tuning in. Let's talk a little current Blackhawks stuff right now, Tony. Mr. Seth Jones, another guy we talked about for a little bit on last week's show. He is going to make an earlier than expected return. He's planning to play Wednesday night in Dallas. His hometown Blackhawks play the Stars on Blackout Wednesday, Thanksgiving Eve. And it's a little bit of a surprise to me, Tony, because last week on that Wednesday, Luke Richardson said it was going to be 7 to 10 days before they'd even do another x-ray on his thumb. And now he's going to just wear a split and say, fuck it, and go and suit up. I love it.
Hey, maybe Marian Hossa had a talk with them about being a long-term contract signed player with the Chicago Blackhawks and said, get your ass out there. Who knows? But I'm happy to see Seth Jones back. Pleasant surprise. I think he's going to really help this blue line kind of solidify. I don't think that you have as many just gaps within the blue line when you have your best defender out there. I don't know if he's your best defender. I think Connor Murphy might still be kind of up there as a more stay-at-home guy-ish type than Seth
He's still
Jones,
your
but
number one defenseman.
He's still your number one defenseman.
Yeah.
So having him back in the lineup is going to help. Obviously, you saw this Blackhawks team, Johnny, perform much better with Seth Jones on the ice in the early going. So let's see what he brings back here. I know obviously he's still kind of battling something, but this is the kind of toughness that you and I are not used to seeing, right, whether that be with our Chicago White Sox or sort of the Blackhawks of late, where they're just getting kind of battered up. Here's a guy that's going to say, fuck it, I'm coming back out there. That's what I want to see from Seth Jones. That's the cool and tough attitude that I want to see.
Right, absolutely. No, you talked about that, them missing him, obviously, in terms of scheme and all of that. But man, just go and look at the record. And I know they weren't supposed to be good this year, and maybe this is a coming back down to reality sort of stretch here. But they're 2-6-2 since Seth Jones went out of the lineup. So that's overall 2-8. Great, because those last two columns are still losses there. They just happen to push a couple of them into either shootout or overtime. So they're obviously missing Seth Jones. And Tony, something that we had talked about a little bit, that we want to see the offense from Seth Jones. And sure, it might be a little bit of a struggle at first getting back into it, and especially if he's wearing a little bit of a brace on his thumb there. However, you can't deny that his speed, his size, his minute munching ability makes an impact on this team. And then not only does it make an impact when he's on the ice, but him being able to take up so many of those minutes then helps the other guys on the back end stay fresh, so you don't get his brother Caleb getting roped into situations where he gets -5 sorts of nights. You don't have Alec Regula getting absolutely battered and bruised by the St. Louis Blues forward group.
He's got to come back and protect his brother's plus minus.
You keep Philip Ruse, a guy who's still learning the game at the NHL level, right? A rookie guy. You don't overexpose him because Seth Jones is there to go and eat those extra minutes in whatever situation it may be. So his return will be big for the Blackhawks. I'm looking forward to seeing him back. And maybe another factor in this, Tony, too, because these guys are people outside of it, right? Seth Jones is a Dallas kid, hometown kid. It's Thanksgiving on Thursday. I don't know where the Joneses are meeting for Thanksgiving, but if he's going to be in Dallas, in that area anyway, you might as well suit up and play if your team's there the night before, right?
Should. I like that. I like that tinfoil hat theory there, Johnny.
Yeah. I just throwing it out there because that was, made a note of it. And I know the Joneses are, Texas originated there, both him and Caleb there. So it's, just something to think about there. But either way, it'll be good to see him back. And the Dallas Stars team that they took the Avalanche wire to wire. I was watching that game on Monday night here. So they did end up losing. I believe that was a shootout loss for them. So they're going to be rearing to get back into it, and the Blackhawks will be looking to kind of reverse a trend because they're on a skid right now. Like I mentioned, that kind of stretch coincides with when Seth Jones went out. So hopefully him being back can bring some other good vibes. I know we'll probably be consuming numerous beverages on Blackout Wednesday, as is tradition, but I want it to be a Blackhawks Wednesday because then we're following up with Blackhawks Friday. Fuck online shopping. Watch hockey.
I want the Blackhawks blackout victory beers to taste better if we're gonna do this. So that's all I've got to say.
Yeah, right. I'm right there with you. So, and once again, they follow that up. They're playing around the holidays. Once again, back home Friday. It's a 1:00 start, so afternoon game on Black Friday. We're calling it Blackhawks Friday. So feel free to join in on that. Fuck online shopping. Watch some hockey. That's my take on it, Tony. I don't know about you. I usually get some of those things done online previously. So Friday, full attention during the day, at least on the Hawks.
There you go. I mean, it makes sense. I like Blackhawks Friday, Blackout Hawks Wednesday. I mean, it's just a Blackhawks, bookended Thanksgiving little celebration that we got going on here.
Yep. All right. I can't wait. Make sure to follow along at Four Feathers Pod on Twitter and Instagram for all of our content from those games. So go ahead and OnTap Sportsnet too on Twitter and Instagram as well. And check out OnTapSportsnet.com for all of our coverage, Blackhawks news and updates all season long. So, Tony, share a final thought with me as we head into the Thanksgiving holiday here. They're wrapping up Marian Hossa night. Blackhawks, sort of holiday stretch coming up here, and then we'll sign off.
Hey, final thoughts, Johnny. I'm excited to see what Seth Jones brings to the Blackhawks once again. Obviously, you mentioned a lot of the coinciding sort of slide that they've been on, and very different than what the early returns were this season. I'd like to see the Hawks get themselves back into sort of a little bit more competitive hockey. Obviously, we've had a couple sort of fake rally type things, but you want to see some more entertaining hockey, I think is overall what you're looking for. If you're a Blackhawks fan right now, they were way better than expected. And right now I think they're kind of more where you expected them to be, but I'd like them to bring it to sort of a happy medium of still some games that, you're getting surprised with and see that talent kind of flow through. So just looking for some of that momentum to come back. The host of the night was awesome, man. Once again, it was awesome to be there with you, the rest of the Four Feathers crew, and more on Tap Sportsnet people who were there in attendance for that. Just a special night, something that we'll remember forever. The beers were flowing, we were cracking them, having a good time all together, and can't wait to get back out to the UC and do that again with the same group. Just a great Sunday, and onward and upward for the Hawks here.
Yeah, right. Like you said, I am looking forward to Seth Jones being back as well. What I'm also looking forward to is a little bit more of that bite to their game. That is what I am looking for, and that is what helped them. I know that they weren't offensive darlings by any means of the imagination when they were kind of on that stretch of winning some games earlier in the season. However, instilling that mentality that Luke Richardson wants, playing a little bit harder on the forecheck, being a little bit harder to beat to the center of the ice in their own zone is what I am looking for in these games surrounding the Thanksgiving holiday. Other than that, I think we covered everything on Marian Hossa Day earlier. So I'm just going to sign off with this. Hossa forever.
Hossa forever.